Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We've been doing a lot of different things in the background on the Discord, lots of different tournaments and things like that. And finally, although it's been a week later, I have a tournament report for you all, which we'll start kind of briefly, and then we're going to go into the finals match between Knight and Tino. Both really excellent players. All three of us are on Team MTG SS. And we'll just break down that finals match, get to hear a bit from both of them. They're being such great players. I think there's so much to learn. But I wanted to start with, courtesy of Tino, he worked on this really quick. Just looking at the meta breakdown. So this was our first Mythic League tournament. We're going to be doing this through the LGS Discord pretty much every month at the end of the month. So like people will have, at least basically 3 weeks to hit Mythic, and then we sign everyone up. And I believe we had 28 total entrants this time. So definitely be on the lookout for that. We try to advertise that wherever we can. And Ezra's been supporting us. Other like admin folks for the Discord and Wizards of the Coast is now sponsoring a prize pool for each event of like in-game foil cards, which is just really, really exciting. So definitely when the reset comes, which I think is either happening Monday or Tuesday, hit Mythic, make sure you join our Discord, and I'll have the link in the description, and then you'll be eligible to play in it at the end of the month. And it's a free tournament to enter and just play and have fun. So without further ado, what we are looking at right now is a breakdown of the meta for the Mythic League tournament. So one thing that we did add, just to maybe spice things up a little bit, is when you've chosen a Planeswalker to use in the previous tournament, you cannot use it for the next tournament. So, and the reason we did that is we know the meta can be kind of stale at times. We know that there might be a tier 1 deck and that other things are just strictly worse potentially. And as you can kind of see, right, like the largest representation in the tournament was Garruk, which we were all pretty much predicting, as it's been, the number 1 deck that Monman's been using. Tino's also been maintaining, I think, top 10 or top 5 with it. I've been playing a ton of it and recommending it to pretty much everyone. So, we knew that was going to happen, but I'm really glad that there was a bit more diversity. And there are a couple decks that do counter Garruk, and that's something I talked about in my last video. So, so as you can see, Garruk obviously took up the lion's share of the meta room for the tournament. And the other ones that were interesting to note were that both Jace and Teferi and Chandra came in as the top other percents. Jace I was really surprised by. I did not really see that coming, but I think that was in response to Garruk. People were hoping to maybe play a bit of control to, outmuscle what he's doing and outlast. Same thing with Teferi. And Chandra, I think, is just a really popular deck. It's really easy to get and to build. So there just would most likely be more Mythic players with access to that list as well. And the final thing to note about the tournament is we also had a 6-card sideboard. Some folks opted out, some folks opted in. I get that it's new for players who have never played like best of 3, which is not what we have in MTG Spellslingers. So it was a really, really fun part of the tournament. And I will just at least show you some of the deck lists so you guys get a sense. And let me know in the comments if it's helpful to potentially publish the deck list so that everyone can see it. At the very least, I'm sure we could figure out how to get this information to folks to be able to look at. And I think it'd be really cool for the community to see it. But yeah, this is the breakdown. As I'm talking, definitely, just be looking at these different percentages and seeing what stands out. I think both Sarah and Teferi are a very good answer to Garruk, so I wasn't surprised to see, a higher percentage of those decks as opposed to like Gideon, Ral, Liliana, Kaya, Davriel. And so it was a pretty interesting tournament in terms of the diversity of the decks. So what we were able to do is basically make a list that, just has the deck list, the in-game name of the person obviously at the top with the deck code, and then your sideboard, right? And so as you can see for Tino here, under the name Kraken, which he added to his name. He's got 2 Tracker Snare, 2 Treetop Lookout, and 2 Break Leg. Excellent sideboard, by the way, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it. I think there's one card in here that really did an incredible amount of work for him, and he just was very prepared coming into this tournament, and I think it showed in the finals match as well. And if we flip over to Knight, and they'll definitely talk about their lists. Knight was running Nissa, and in the board he had the Scion of Ashaya, probably a good thing to side in against aggressive and mid-range decks. Treetop Lookout against Teferi. Infest against, lower curve decks. Pretty good against Garruk as well. Pixie Trickster, really good way to answer a lot of different things. And 2 Grudge Matches, which he was not running in the main board and probably wanted to make room for other cards that were just baseline more powerful. But Grudge Match can be a very, very clutch card in the aggro and mid-range matchups. So as you can see, you basically can scroll, and we've got the full deck list and all of that for all of our players. And what we did was each player could see the deck lists when they queued into their matches. So this was just full transparency, making sure that there was no issue, with any sort of like cheating or siding things in that shouldn't be there. Each player had access to all the information, and the system, I think, worked really well. And I would definitely use it, I think, again and again for these sorts of tournaments, because for a Mythic level tournament, we want it to be as competitive as possible and have as much integrity as possible. And I think really happily everything worked out. I got knocked out really early, as I said, unfortunately against the Sarah deck that Odyssey really beat up on me playing Garruk, so I got pretty punished there. But we're going to get into an interview and analysis with both Knight and Tino for that last match. Just really excited to have them. I've played with and against these players often. Just very, very nice, very, very good at what they do. As you probably have seen them interacting on different Discords, and so I hope you all enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to just chatting with these 2 guys and getting a sense of what it really takes to be that sort of top tier player. So thanks for sticking with us. All right, so we are here with Knight and Tino in the finals of the Mythic League tournament a week later, but I'm really, really glad that we're here with both of y'all. And I figured before I even just flip over to the footage and we go through it, just would love to hear a little bit about you both. I think I said before, like, whether it's how long you've been playing, how you were feeling about this tournament, also like where you are at on the Mythic ladder, just to give folks a sense. But thank you both for coming through.
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and go first. I'm Knight. I'm currently at number 9 on the Mythic ladder. I'm sticking at 3,200 for my trophies for this season, since I had a bit of an unlucky streak and fell from 3,450. I started playing about a month ago. I've played a lot of Magic the Gathering, though, so since that translates pretty well, I've already got into top 10.
Heck yeah.
All right. I'm Washington or Pino or Kraken. I mean, you talk about me all the time, LongTim, on your videos, so
I sure do.
Know me. Yeah, people already know me. Well, I'm number 4 right now on the ladder, and I'm trying to stick it spot number 4. I guess when I started getting competitive was like with Liliana, with Casino Liliana. That's when I started getting competitive, started playing more. Before that, I was pretty casual. Like, I didn't really care about being top 100 or anything. And then I joined MTGSS. And then after that, just being competitive after that. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for sharing a bit, because I know I've gotten to speak and play with and against y'all a bit. So I'm really excited for other folks who come by the channel to get to know you both a little bit. And how, so I was looking at, the meta breakdown, right? Obviously, like, Garruk was the most played Planeswalker for this tournament, but I'd love to hear a little bit before we get into the video of, like, why you chose the decks that you did. So maybe Knight, if you want to get it going first, that would be great.
Sure, yeah. My explanation is pretty simple. I didn't have Copperpet drawn up, so I couldn't play Garrick. So I went with my Nissa deck that I had just finished crafting as well. Um, I was having a lot of fun with Nissa. I was experimenting with different lands and different sideboard stuff I was really putting a lot of thought into. But I was really just enjoying playing Nissa. It's a fun pattern to play. And I found that with the life gain and ramp ending games pretty quickly, I was able to stave off aggro, and I was kind of expecting to see a lot of aggro in the tournament.
Yeah, so, sometimes you make do, right? Even if you wanted to play a different deck, I think. I mean, I'm interested to hear what you both think, but I think both Nissa and Garrick were just pretty much talked about as being the top tier decks in terms of like power level and consistency. So I'm not surprised to see that we saw this matchup. But yeah, Tina, were you pretty dead set on Garrick? Was there any question that you were going to play that?
Well, Garrick is my ladder deck, so I'm like really into it. I think like Nisa is pretty good too, but like I was like, cause like before Garrick, we were playing Nisa 24/7 for like more than a month, so I was like sick of it. So that's why I moved to Garrick. Um, but I was playing Garrick before everyone knew Garrick was good, you know, like way before like Mon Man was like playing it.
Yeah,
So
I remember you being on it pretty early on, and I think you also very much identified that it wasn't necessarily like a mid-range deck that needed to go big, but a more of this kind of like aggressive style, but also like beefy mid-range deck.
yeah, because it's like like right now I have gone through. I'm definitely doing a lot more beefier because like with tracker and you can like go face. I'm all about going face right now as fast as I can.
Yeah, I think these two decks like were just going to be represented at the tournament. Wasn't sure exactly how much each would show up, but I think both were really, really good choices just in a vacuum, right? If you think about, I don't know what's going to show up. I know, Knight, you mentioned aggro, and I think that's always a pretty safe bet because Chandra was pretty well represented. It is just one of the easier decks also to access and to certainly get Mythic with. So I think that was a really good, meta consideration overall. And Nissa really does have so many different ways that you can build her. So with your experience with that deck, I'm sure you felt, somewhat confident being like, okay, if I want to beat this specific matchup, this is kind of what I want the deck to look like.
Right. Yeah, that was one of my struggles with putting together my sideboard is whether I wanted to fit in a Day of Judgment or an Infest. I ended up going with Infest, and I think it helped in the matchup that I had against Gideon. Infest saved my day, so I don't think I would have made it to the finals if I hadn't put in Infest. But oh man, in the finals, I was wishing I had a Day of Judgment. So there you go.
I mean, I didn't face any aggro during the tournament. I mean, I guess you can call Davriel a little bit of aggro, but not
Depending
really.
on the build. Depending on the build.
Yeah,
Right.
his build wasn't that much aggro. I don't know. You saw it, LongTim prototypes deck.
Yeah, I remember it. It definitely was an interesting sort of like, I don't know if you want to call it control, but it was definitely more mid-rangey in that it wasn't trying to go all in on the sort of aggro mutagen
Mm-hmm.
package that we've seen.
Yeah. So
What was it like for both of you to play? We'll definitely get into it soon, but what was it like to play with sideboards?
I loved it. I loved it so much. I'm so used to playing like Magic. Even in limited Magic, you get a sideboard of all the other cards you drafted. And I just think it brought the complexity up so much, and you don't just automatically get knocked out by a bad matchup. So I was very happy to have a sideboard, and I think 6 cards is about the right size for Spellslingers.
Well, I'm used since I played Yu-Gi-Oh for a long time. I'm used to having a 15 card sideboard, which is a lot.
It's
But
normal for Magic too to have 15.
Yep, same amount. And you know, we definitely borrowed that from Logan, who had done his tournaments with a 6 card sideboard. And so far, I think it's felt good. But yeah, I wanted to hear at least both of your takes because I think you can go about it a few different ways with how to organize these tournaments. And overall, I felt like it brought the level of complexity up a step. And like you said, Knight, I think it's just a more satisfying play experience to not just have like completely dead matchups where if you just get your one matchup that you can't possibly really account for, that's it. But you actually do have options to really shore up some of the weaker matchups, or conversely, make your pretty solid matchups like as good as possible. So great. Well, I think we've spent some great time just getting to know you guys and hearing a bit of your takes. So I know we're going to be playing videos on two different ends, but I feel like you know, however we want to lead it, and you know, I can sort of get things rolling, and then definitely let's feel free to stop at a couple points if there's some really helpful things, because I think when doing this with Boss in the past, there are just a lot of things that we're potentially thinking about, and it's not easy to really indicate that when you're playing those games. So I would say feel free to share any and all thoughts, but I'm going to switch over to the video myself now, and just let me know when you guys are ready.
Yeah, I'm on the screen with the 2 planeswalkers in the diagonal line. So if you get to that point, I'm ready when you are.
Let me get you there. Okay. Yeah, it's at 140. Is that right?
I'm at 139, but that should be fine.
Okay, let me back up a second. All right, ready to go?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, start it up. So I guess first impressions. What were we thinking? How do we feel this matchup goes generally? I know the decks can be
Right.
different builds, but what were you guys feeling?
I would say I was pretty afraid of getting run over if I didn't get my ramp early enough. So my main goal was to find the best way to stabilize and then accelerate from there.
Got it.
yeah, I usually don't have a problem beating Nisa, so I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, and of course we're seeing Knight's perspective, so we're gonna definitely Tino can clue us into to kind of what he was thinking at the time. But yeah, definitely a great mulligan from you, Knight. Definitely just trying to search for your early game, you know, interactions or ramp, and you know, not have as much clunky stuff in your hand.
And
Yeah, I
this looks
don't.
really good for me here,
Yeah.
right? But apparent, and
Yeah,
so I was pretty happy with it.
Yep. Early rampant growth. You're going to be on 3 next turn. Can play out the agitator.
like
Nice.
after. Yeah,
Yeah. And also a solid
But
start from you, too. I mean, I love just slamming a Dark Confidant, knowing I'm going to trade with something and get a card. That just always feels good to me.
mm-hmm.
I was pretty happy with the 4/4 because I figured, well, it's probably going to be something I can block and survive, but that did not happen.
Yeah, I think um, playing agitator there would be okay too. Um, but also it can get really awkward with the fragile mana gems
Right.
for for the Ashara.
I wanted to make sure it flipped, which is why I was saving it for the next turn.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right play. Yeah, I mean from your perspective, Knight, I'd be pretty happy with where we're at. You know,
Yeah, it
being
looked
able to play
pretty good.
Tristani next turn, followed up with Primal or Primeval.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I end up playing the Trostani or Primeval. I think knowing he has the Doom, I probably should go Trostani, but I'm not sure what I do here. Oh, but if that's a 7/7, then I have to go Primal.
And the big ol' ooze. So here I want to pause for a second. So,
Sure.
so you tell me why, Knight, you wanted to play Primeval Titan here.
Mostly because I don't want to take 9 to the face, and this is my only blocker that can deal 6 damage.
Yeah, that can go
Okay.
head to head with him.
What was there a consideration at all for Tristani to make some soldier tokens?
No, because we're going into turn 5 on Garrick, and that's
Right.
the Veilcurse Predator turn. And I
Hmm.
don't want to get blown out by Veilcurse Predator and then take 11 from the ooze.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that is definitely one of the scariest cards that Garrick has, especially when he's ahead on board or just has a threat like Ooze. So yeah, I feel like this is close in a sense, right? Because if you get to just curve out and keep your fragile mana gems potentially, right, and I guess you get a little greedy and play Tristani and make some chump blockers. If he doesn't have the Predator, then you buy yourself a bit of time, a bit of mana. You get to set up into Craterhoof a lot better. Um,
Yeah.
of course, like you said, I think you've got enough gas here to not have to play super greedy. Like you can play a bit more, like I think, like you said, safer here. But I feel like this is a decision point that I was thinking of something else. So it's really interesting to see like what are the cards that you're considering, and I think Predator is
Yeah.
one of the most annoying ones to deal with.
And
Going
the
for
thing,
Trostani is a big reward if he doesn't have Predator, but I didn't want to risk the whole game there. So
and also like he wants to ramp as much as he can, so he don't want a soldier because he needs to ramp to get to the behemoth.
I think I have Behemoth the next turn if I play Trostani, though, because I have 2 gems, another mana, and then I have 8 exactly for Craterhoof. So I did have it if I played Trostani.
Yeah,
Only if only if he ramped.
No, but oh, you're right. You're right. If I made the soldiers, then I don't have it. Good
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
oh, were you at? Oh, okay. I think I missed that. All right, so probably a bit of a moot point. Then I think that makes a lot more sense. Um, all right, cool. I'm down to get back into it, but I thought that was an
All
interesting
right.
piece. Okay.
But I feel
Yeah.
like at this point he's winning, because he's getting his ramp on, and we're just trading one for one. So at this point he's winning.
Yeah, I guess one of the more devastating things you could have here, Tina, would be just the what is it, Wild Speaker's Fury, just to
Mm-hmm.
take the 7, kill the Titan, and swing in,
And drop a
What
2.
and
happens?
there it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you played it. I'm a few seconds behind you then.
Oh, okay. Let me pause. I'm at 447 right now.
Okay, I'll catch up to you then.
Cool.
Uh, yeah, there's the Fury or 47.
Yep, it's like just as the damage is resolving against you.
All right, give me a few more seconds.
Sure.
3, 2, 1, play.
Cool. Oh man, so that's probably the best thing you could have done there,
I could have
Tina.
had.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause then I could took control of the field for sure.
I
Yeah,
think
and
I do make the soldiers here, and then I play the lookout. I'm not sure though. Yeah,
yeah,
because at this point I have to set up for the Craterhoof, Predator or no Predator.
definitely. Yep.
And at least with the lookout, the Predator doesn't kill my blocker for the ooze.
Right. No, I think you were making the optimal line, and even though Tino had
There
that
it
and
is,
the
of
Predator,
course.
Hmm.
yeah, it's really hard with the fact that Garrett can just have these huge attackers, and just if you've got the right combination of removal, you just run away with the game. Um, And obviously, it's
Man, I
huge
had like
that you can block
everything this
there.
game, but he has every answer. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it feels bad from Tino's perspective, which I was hearing him say earlier, right? Where you're like, you're only trading one for one, you're not really pressuring, but then sometimes you get these turns where like, okay, if your opponent doesn't put like quite a few 4 or 5 power
why did
creatures,
it?
you're gonna fall
Why didn't
behind.
you attack there?
I don't want to trade my 5/5 with your 5/2. I'd rather block it with the bird. If you have the predator, I lose, but you already played one predator, so I figured it's unlikely.
Yeah, good,
That's why I didn't attack.
good catch,
Oh,
Tino. Yeah, I actually didn't think about that myself there either. Um, but I agree with Knight there. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, you're trading the bird here. But if you don't, it's not great. But at this point at night, you're probably feeling, you have to play as kind of, I don't know if greedily is the right word, but like you have to play for the best line as much as
Well, this
possible.
hand is primal summoning or bust.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this list is currently playing one instead of two because I find that I almost never need two because I would tend to overdraw.
yeah.
But at this point, it's good, pretty much good game
Yep.
with the Kothapet at 14 and 15 next turn. So
It's just Pixie, right? Pretty much
it's
for you.
just Pixie or Bird of Paradise to buy me another turn. Uh, Unfortunately, I've already blocked with my bird. I wasn't really considering Kothaped when I made that block. I was considering the more common, a 5/5 blocks most of the smaller creatures, even with a buff.
Yeah,
yeah. Because if you would have kept your birds, you could have had a chance.
Yeah,
yeah.
but I think it was still right to block with the bird.
I agree. I don't know that you can just be like, oh, I'm hoping I can outlast to be able to answer a Kothafed. Yeah, I don't. I think that's a pretty.
And
I mean,
bird
it's a
doesn't
tough
really
decision.
answer Kothaped. It
No,
just buys a turn.
exactly. Yeah, but yeah,
This is a
Tino just really had I think like 3 or 4 turns in a row where the pressure that he's able to apply and Kothafed is pretty hard for Nissa to answer unless you're running the Mist Ravens and the Pixies, um, and like
I
have
do have the
access to them.
Pixies, but I only have one in the main board.
Right, right, right.
And then this Krov, I thought I was safe because I gained a life.
Nope.
Apparently not.
All right. Well, we can definitely pause, or let's let it play, but we can definitely talk about the sideboarding, um, maybe from your side first night, but also we'll see what Tino
Sure.
was doing.
For me, it's a consideration of whether Infest is worth it, and I definitely bring in the Pixie.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember if I cut my Treetop Lookout or not because it is an early creature. I think I ended up leaving one in the main board because I have one in the sideboard. But I was sweating when I was making these choices. Let's see what I ended up going with. Um, oh yeah, I'm not sure if I brought the grudge matches. I think I brought the 2 grudge matches in for the 2 Panharmonicons, and I think that was the only change I made.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts would be on bringing in the Infest, though.
Against Tino's specific list, it's not as effective as it is when people are playing kind of more of the low curve version, but I generally felt that Infest was decent into Garrick. But Tino, what do you think?
I think you would have been good because a lot of the times you're like, it's either like saving you from getting like extra damage or it's destroying a creature. So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my thoughts were if it doesn't kill things, I still die, and so I didn't put it in. Um, this is where I would love to have had a Day of Judgment for sure. When we
Yeah.
get another look at my sideboard, I try to consider what I might have cut. But you only have the 6 colored slots, so if you fill too much of your sideboard with colored cards, you're not going to get as much out of your sideboard
Right.
in general. I think some people were critical of my decision to bring in Grudge Match,
Yeah.
but I think it's
Like,
the best option I had.
like what's the grudge match for?
I can kill smaller creatures when I have Prime Times or Crater Hoofs out. Uh, and I was also hoping to potentially use it either to like suicide one of my creatures into removing a Copperped or something like that. I don't know. I mean, Krav is a 7/7. Primeval Titan's a 7/7. I can kill a Krav without taking trample damage. I don't know. I think it's just the best removal I had, honestly.
Interesting. I mean, I think Grudge Match can be really good against aggro and mid range in particular. I'm not sure that it does all that much for like. I think you definitely want the Pixie. I would have taken the second Pixie to deal with either their giant bear that's growing, Kothafed, like ooze after it's been pumped. Like it just really does so much work for you, I think.
You think I caught a Lava Wave in that scenario then?
I
It's either Lava Wave or Trostani.
Why not Crater Hoof?
I can't cut it colored slot.
Yeah, it has to be colored.
Oh, sorry. So I was thinking in terms of curve. Yeah, I think I would. I think I would want something that's a little bit earlier interaction or something that actually answers some of the hardest to answer threats. So I would have wanted two Pixie Trickster at the least. I also think there's an argument for another Scion for you, just because it can help shore up your curve.
Yeah, Zion's pretty good. Because Zion, you can't really like do anything to it.
I might have put in the Pixie actually. Let's see if I do, because I just cut Trostani. Yeah, it looks like I do put in the Pixie.
Okay. I think that's fair. Like Trostani, I've been very impressed with when dealing with aggro mid range, but I think I get wanting to hold on to some of your haymakers with like Lava Wave. I think it's probably pretty close. I probably would cut the Lava Wave over it, but
I think you're right about that now.
Yeah. But it's hard.
I actually only run one Lava Wave in my newer Nissa list, so.
Yeah, for me, my siding was pretty easy. Just add the trackers and take out the Wormswakes. I just felt like with the treetops, like my Wormswakes were just gonna get hit, and they weren't that good. Yeah.
Yeah, Tino, I think you really hit it out of the park with Tracker Snare.
Don't remind me.
That was a card that I did not really think about too much in my own sideboard, and then when I saw you have it, I was like, "Oh no, I should have been playing that." Okay. Are you guys still on game? We're on game 2 here, right?
You just see my opening hand, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh yes, the Primeval Titan and the Druid.
Yeah, not a
bad
opener. Yeah. Yeah, so I think just jumping quickly back to like Infest, the only reason why I felt like Infest is good into Garrick is that you're just often, if you watch Tino in some of these games, like he's instantly like, I'm gonna make this thing an X2 or an X1. And whether he was reading your list or not, I feel like sometimes you are able to punish Garrick a bit with Infest because they're just trying to push pressure and trading their toughness for that. But also it is tough night for you because again you would have had to cut a color slot, and I think the one card, although it feels like a little, I don't know, like sacrosanct to cut it, like do you think it would have been reasonable to cut like one Agitator for Infest?
I honestly think it's never right to cut an Agitator.
Yeah.
It's probably like the best card in the deck for turboing out ramp.
So maybe it would have been both Lava Waves potentially for Pixie and Infest.
I could see Lava Waves over an Agitator and a Lava Wave because
I would say
tend to only have a couple creatures, and Lava Wave isn't as good against that. So I could see that.
Yeah, I would say probably took out a Trostani and a Lava Wave for Pixie and Infest.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I had a really bad hand. Like, I had nothing to play.
I remember, Tino, watching this from your perspective, and I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
This
thought
is
I was going to lose. Yeah.
Well, from that perspective, it looked like it was going to be uphill at the very least.
Yeah, playing a
Like,
tracker here, I was like, oh
yeah,
man,
playing an
I got
empty
this.
tracker, yeah, that's nothing.
I think you said, Knight, at that point, you're like, wow, you must really have nothing going on.
Yeah, that's what I said out loud.
That was
Uh,
so great. So
I was
funny.
I
just trying
think
to
in
set a
this
life.
spot, actually, in this spot, I'm considering that I maybe should have attacked with the druid because I had another druid.
Mm-hmm.
It's I
True.
I definitely get why you didn't. Looking at your hand,
I would
but
have blocked the druid if you would have
I
attacked.
think I should have
for sure.
because then I deny him in death on his turn, and that shuts down an ooze.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely should have attacked. But I don't think I saw that at the time. I only see that now.
I-
You also shouldn't have blocked.
Yeah, I think you
Yes,
you take this
that's
for
also
sure.
true.
That's
I definitely thought about it.
You guys want to pause here for a second? I think there's a good point here.
I kind of want to see if I block.
Okay, yeah.
I did not block. Okay, I can
I
pause
did
now.
not block.
Okay, so let's pause here for a second. So, I think this is a really good moment because I think one of the keys to really understanding how to play against Garrick is like, for the most part, because Garrick gets so rewarded for things dying on his turn, you almost always want to be taking the damage, right? Unless it's really, really giving them so much of an advantage. So I think, this is something that I'm not sure that every player on the ladder is like thinking about this because I know from my own experience playing Garrick that there are attacks where I'm like, literally, if they block here, it turns on my entire hand, and if they don't, which they definitely should not, it's totally fine. Like they're not gonna die. They're not getting super punished. Like they've got board presence. Like they'll be fine. But I do find that a lot of players will just take the favorable trade, kind of saying like, oh, I hope they don't have it, or like, and I think to that point, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. Like, you can't play around everything, right? It's like you can't always assume your Garrick opponent is going to get rewarded for trading on their turn, but they have enough cards and just the passive ability to make it work that I think when I'm playing against Garrick, my sort of perspective is like I'm gonna block at the very end of when I need to block. So I'm curious how you guys have both felt about that.
Yeah, I tend to avoid blocking as much as I can, but it kind of depends on what deck I'm playing.
Mm.
If I'm playing Nissa, I feel like I can avoid blocking because I can gain life. It's a lot harder if I'm like playing Nahiri. But I definitely always prioritize getting trades on offense than on defense with Nahiri because Nahiri at least is I'm either going to kill you or I'm going to die. There is no in between.
Very true.
But I think where this gets most interesting is the Garrick mirror matchup.
Yeah. Tino, what's your experience been with how players play against you, like in terms of blocking?
Yeah, I feel like they block a lot, but sometimes like they have to, like 'cause you pressure them so much that they have to block no matter what.
Yeah.
So it all depends.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys for pausing there
Yeah.
for a sec. I thought that was a good. So I'm at 1641. Like the hit's about to go through. Are we?
I am 1646. So why don't you count me in?
Yep, I got you. I can. Three, two, one, go. Perfect. All right, travel prep down or travel supplies. I'm still used to calling it travel prep for Magic the Gathering. I always mess that up. And yeah, Knight, I'm really just looking at your hand and going, this looks pretty good.
I think you should have attacked there.
Wow, you have a
With
4/5.
who?
You could. Well, you needed to pressure me some more because now you're letting me like take control back.
Well, you have a 4/5 blocker. What am I supposed to do with my 3/4s and 3/3s?
Yeah, I think you just have to sit here from Knight's perspective. I mean, I get what you're saying, Tino, because like you do have some haymakers that can come out with Death Shadow and obviously being able to remove things over the course of the game. But like I probably wouldn't swing there. There's not really an attack that gets Knight anything.
I hope I don't block here. Did I block? I'm so dumb. Why did I do that?
Well,
I think it was because I was like, I want to make a space for Primeval Titan, but I could have just played over that cheap.
Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
did save
Yeah.
yourself like I think that's That's a block that, in the context of your hand, I think makes a lot
And
more sense.
also, like the sheep could have hit the bear, you know. So it's like
The
Looks
t-
like it didn't matter because you have Krav and you're killing something off.
the 10-10 Krav. I forgot
no,
about this.
I'm taking it to the face.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
there's a reason why for
yeah.
Tino's hand, I think.
If you would have
Uh,
kept the sheep, I would have killed the bear, but you didn't keep the sheep.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a really interesting point because from Knight's perspective, I think I would have done the same thing and just said, okay, you're gonna get something out of this block, but I'd rather like actually have an efficient thing where I get the Scorpion down a toughness. That means I can
Yeah.
block it at least with the 4/4, and I can play my Primeval Titan next turn.
I think
So
at this point I know that Tino has 2 Death Shadows in his hand because that explains the awkward play at the beginning. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to play around this.
oh,
And
and,
I'm
and the
and I think
trackers.
this is the kicker here. This moment is when I lose the game. Because being denied that ramp is, or at least it starts turning it around. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh no.
Because
But I
you
had
got
to
the
play it. Like everything in my hand had a debut.
Oh yeah.
So it was just,
yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you unquestionably made the correct play, and Tino had the tracker snare to counter the ramp, the life gain, and the drawing 2 cards.
Yeah.
And he's got a huge Krav on it. Like, I think even if Tino has tracker snare there, and he doesn't have this massive Krav, you're probably fine. But it's just the fact that he ends up having both, and getting a card off that as well from the tracker snare. Now, after this combat, you
I
know,
think my blocks are wrong here. I think I'm supposed to take the 7/7 and block the Scorpion and then throw the 4/4 in front of Krav so that I can draw 2 next turn.
and then you can still
Uh,
daybreak it if you need to.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then Copperpet happens and it doesn't matter.
Oh my
You
goodness.
could have drawn 2 cards next turn if you would have kept the
Yeah, so
seven.
maybe I could have drawn it, but look at how many things you put out here. It's too many
Oh,
threats.
can we pause here for a second?
Yeah.
I mean,
This was oof.
so I just want to providing some context here. When Tino opens with his hand, right, and then he gets these early death shadows, and I'm like, oh, like aside from dealing damage to himself, like these things are just gonna sit here. You know, he plays the Ulvenwald tracker, which doesn't do anything. Like from every perspective in that early game, I'm like, there's no way Knight is not winning this game. He has a excellent curve, is going to take advantage. The tracker snare and the giant Krav were obviously going to be pretty tough. And then the following turn goes double Death Shadow after Kothafed. I mean, there is nothing but Day of Judgment that answers this, right?
And this is exactly why I was like, dang, I should have had a Day of Judgment in my sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and from your perspective, Knight, before we like finish things out too, like, did you feel like Day of Judgment was a card that you needed to win against Garrick, or did you feel like the matchup was even enough that you didn't necessarily need to be considering it for the sideboard?
Well, I wasn't sure going in, but I was definitely sure going out that one Day of Judgment was definitely a good option. Because with Kothapet and 2 Death Shadows, that's 3 cards, potentially Crop, that like cannot be answered by Lobby Wave like 100%, right? So I definitely think a Day of Judgment replacing a Lava Wave here is essential. However, at this point, I had never seen a Nissa deck running Day of Judgment. Like, I had never even seen it. So it was barely on my radar. And that's probably because I started late. And Nissa used to run Day of Judgment, I hear. But it really wasn't as much on my radar. So I didn't really think I needed it. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, it to your defense also, Knight, it was only ever really run in the OTK version of Nissa because you the sort of like theory behind it, right, is like you have to go not super late, but you're definitely going, later than most mid-range decks, and so it's just really helpful to have Day of Judgment to answer whatever your opponent is doing. But you wouldn't like in your construction of this deck, and I ran this for like a whole season. Like I would not be thinking about Day of Judgment myself either, and
Exactly.
this draw, I mean, from Tino and like how it all plays out, it just was like really wild to watch these turns unfold because it went from literally unwinnable to there is basically nothing that can answer this in like a couple turns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
It's definitely an exciting game.
also if he would have played Judgment, then I would have played things a lot differently. You know, like I wouldn't have all my shit at once. You know.
For sure. No, that's a really good point, Tino. Like obviously you would have been considering that with how much you'd be committing to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this just I don't know. It's just what was really really wild to watch this. So, yeah. So let's see how things close out and
yeah, I think it's over at this point for sure, though.
Yeah, I don't.
Let's see it.
I don't think there's anything.
There's nothing. He needs like 3 pixies.
But don't worry, I got my grudge match.
Yeah, the grudge match will. You've got this, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think in the mid-range builds, the only cards that can answer these sorts of threats, if you're not running Day of Judgment, is Pixie and Mistraven. And Mistraven doesn't even answer them, right? It just buys you a
Yeah,
turn.
they cost 0 and they come back. So
yeah.
That's part of the reason I don't run the Mistraven.
Yeah, I think
and
Pixie
I'd rather
is.
run a Lava Wave.
Yeah, Pixie is infinitely better.
I got Krog.
You've got the blocker you've got the 3 blockers. You know?
Yeah. I don't remember if I extend this more, if I bother blocking, but
I think you do try to survive one more turn by doing this.
I think you literally said I'm gonna play it out still, and I was like, yeah, play it out. You know.
There's 0 answers, but it lets Tino revel in his draw a little more, so there's that.
Yeah, it's good. You build up Tino's ego, so like when you play him on the ladder and you beat him, you know, it's just even more sweeter. You know?
I remember I told Tino that I was saying if I beat you here, then I'm obligated to beat you on the ladder, and then Tino asked if the reverse also applied, and then a few days later I passed him on the ladder, but it was very briefly. It did not last. But Tino was like, hey, I beat you in the tournament. You're not allowed to do that.
All right, you take the 13 here, being like, all right, gotta peel anything to have a chance.
Yeah, he's trying to get some draw out of that.
Yeah, and the fatal infection to end it.
Twice with the Dark Confidant, it's over.
Oh God, I remember you saying that night.
Yeah.
Like, well, if he goes to 2, maybe, you know. Oh man.
I was like, all right, I draw.
How do I play this Lava Wave or Primal Summoner?
Yeah.
Man.
You can see I'm trying.
I appreciate that, you know, we get to see the end of the match, and
I almost was like, hey, what if you don't block and then you attack with everything?
Yeah. No, hey, look, you got to play to your opponent. Like, in those situations, like, you can steal some wins if your opponent's, like, not paying attention to something, you know?
That's true.
That's true. So I appreciated the effort.
I was mostly just joking around, though. I wasn't trying to squeak out a win here. I knew it was over.
Just a casual 44 damage. It's all good, you know? Oh, my goodness. Wow.
But yeah, no, this was an awesome last game of the tournament. I think it was fantastic.
It really, I don't know. It was such you both are excellent players. And like, I think about Knight, for you having played this game for like a month and being at the level that you are. Like, I played Magic the Gathering for like 16 years, and I've been playing this game since like November and didn't hit Mythic the first month that I played. You know, like, obviously getting to see you both, and then Tino, I don't know exactly as much about like your timeline with the game, but you both just are playing at such a high level, and I think that is just it's really really enjoyable to see that from both of you. it was a quick match, and I'm sure Knight that was it was a little tougher on your end to kind of get through that, but I think it was an excellent matchup to see between two really really great players. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I was a bit bruised coming out of that, but it just goes to show how strong Garrick is right now.
yeah, but you won the draft tournament this morning, so
Yes,
got
yes,
some
I did.
revenge there, which I'll see if we can get some content about that coming soon. Um, but
Yeah, he wants a title, LongTim.
I do want to roll.
I think we can make that happen. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
good.
that's yeah. I mean I feel like that's gonna be the sought after thing in the server. It's like who's got the coolest, roles from the early, like imagining these tournaments going on, and then it's like, oh man, Roxora had the first tournament, Tino got the first Mythic tournament, Knight got the first draft tournament. Um,
Right. And
I,
then if you win twice, you can have like a two-time Mythic champion or something like that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's look, it's really a pleasure to get to play this game with you both and be on the same team as well. But also just see you guys competing and participating in these events because, I think we're all recognizing that the game is, not really progressing, at least in terms of how many cards we have, like new cards and things like that. But I think what the community is doing, and all of you have contributed to it, um, to put on these tournaments and find ways of competing and really, enjoying whatever level of competition. Um, I think it's been really really great to get to work on. So
Yeah, and thank you to you and Tank and everybody else on the admin team for the LGS to put in the work to make these things possible.
it is very much our pleasure. So and I'm so glad that y'all participated and we got to see a finals between you both. So any closing thoughts? Just like where you're trying to end on the ladder at the end of today, because we're recording on Sunday. Just any things that you're looking forward to in the future.
Well, I haven't moved on the ladder from 3,200 for about 5 or 6 days now. That's where I'm ending. I wish I hadn't lost down from 3447, but I exceeded my goal of 3,000. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
Well, you still got like the whole day today to like go up.
I'm not touching it. I'm not jinxing it.
What? Well, yeah, I'm staying on fourth. Like, I feel like fourth is a good place. Like, if with me being at four, the top four places are MTGSS. So,
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be in that group as well.
That's awesome.
and
Yeah.
and then like I feel like so Nona is fifth. So as long as I beat Nona, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's been drama around the server for sure.
Oh, the competition is fierce with you two, and I'm trailing behind a little over 3K, but been wobbling between 10th and 15th. We'll see if I can get some more work done today. But just thank you so much to tonight and to Tino, you both. I hope there's a lot of folks who can tune in for these tournaments. It's a little hard to stream them, obviously, so we'll do our best to get it out to the community. But thank you both for just taking the time today so we could, talk about this, the tournament, how that went, and just your experience, and just the, both of your abilities to be such high level players. So I'm sure we will see each other around. And thanks so much for joining today. And we'll just look forward to more tournaments with you both.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it.
For sure.
Great to be on here, Tim.
Thanks, guys. You take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Good luck, Tino, if you're gonna keep climbing up. Um,
Probably later. Yeah, later.
and Knight, I feel like I think being over 3K is like always a really nice benchmark, and then trying to like grind even more can sometimes be not the most fun experience. So I feel you on that. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, and thank you all for joining the channel today, and we will catch you next time.
All right.
Yeah.